Have you ever really stopped to wonder why our beliefs feel so personal? Why is it that when someone challenges something you deeply believe, it can feel less like a simple debate and more like they're attacking you? It's a really fascinating puzzle, and it goes right to the core of how our brains build our reality. So let's get into it. Right, this question right here, it's not just some philosophical thing to ponder. It turns out there's a real biological answer. Our brains have this very specific, almost peculiar way of handling information, of deciding what's true, and most importantly, defending the ideas that become a part of who we are. So, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll nail down what a belief actually is from the brain's point of view. Then we're going to peek inside our own heads to see what happens when we hear something we think is true. After that, we'll get to the really juicy stuff, how some beliefs get tangled up with our very identity. Then we'll zoom out to look at the social angle, and finally, we'll wrap it all up with a practical toolkit for thinking a little bit clearer. All right, first things first, what exactly is a belief? Because it's way more than just an opinion you have. From a neurological standpoint, you can almost think of it as your brain's core operating system. Think about it. Every single moment, your brain is absolutely flooded with information. Beliefs on the commitments it makes to turn all that noise into a workable action plan. They're the filters that decide what seems true, what feels like a threat, and honestly, what's even worth paying attention to in the first place. And this is what's so wild. From the inside looking out, your beliefs don't feel like a choice or an opinion. They feel like gravity, like the floor. They feel like the fundamental structure of reality itself. It's the very lens through which you see the world and make sense of everything. Okay, so let's get a little more granular and actually look at the brain. What is physically happening in there when you decide something is true versus false? It's pretty cool because neuroscientists have actually seen what accepting and rejecting information looks like in brain scans. And what's really amazing is that this connects back to an idea from the philosopher Spinoza hundreds of years ago that modern neuroscience is now backing up. He basically suggested that our brain's default setting is believe. Just to understand a sentence, your brain has to sort of, for a millisecond, accept it as true. Deciding it's false, that actually takes a second step. It's extra work. And fMRI studies show this perfectly. Believing something, accepting it, is fast. It's the default, and it actually activates the reward centers in your brain. It literally feels good to agree. But disbelief, that's a slower, secondary process. And get this, it activates the anterior insula, a region of the brain that's also linked to disgust. It's almost like your brain processes a false statement the same way it would process spoiled food. So we've got the basic mechanics of how the brain says yes or no. But that still doesn't explain why we get so defensive about certain ideas. And that's where our identity comes into play. Because it turns out not all beliefs are created equal. Some are just facts, but others, they get wired directly into our sense of self. I think literally becomes I am. To figure this out, researchers did this brilliant study where they challenged two totally different kinds of beliefs. First, they used non-identity beliefs, factual statements that are pretty emotionally neutral, like secondhand smoke is a health concern. Then they went for the big ones, core identity beliefs. We're talking about deep political or religious convictions, the kind of stuff that defines who you are and which tribe you belong to. And the results were just incredible. When one of those core, identity-based beliefs was challenged, a part of the brain called the default mode network lit up like a Christmas tree. Now, this isn't just any random part of the brain. You can think of it as your brain's me network. It's the exact same system that fires up when you're thinking about your personality, your past memories, your hopes for the future. So when someone attacks your core belief, your brain doesn't register it as an attack on an idea. It processes it as an attack on you. Okay, so this brings us to the bigger picture. If our beliefs aren't always just about being factually correct, what else are they doing for us? Well, the answer is that they are deeply, deeply social. It's not just about being right. Now, we all like to think that our beliefs are 100% about predictive accuracy, about having a correct map of the world. But that's only one piece of the pie. They serve at least two other huge functions. A big one is social cohesion, our powerful, primal need to belong to a group, to a tribe. And another is emotional regulation, using our beliefs to manage anxiety and make a chaotic world feel a little more orderly. You can see this tension play out so clearly when you put science and dogma side by side.
The entire culture of science is built to be error correcting. Its primary goal is accuracy, so it has to celebrate when new evidence forces it to update its beliefs. Dogma, on the other hand, often has a different primary goal: group cohesion. And to maintain that cohesion, the core beliefs must be preserved, which means any counter evidence has to be rejected.
So, knowing all this about the quirks of our own brains, how can we actually get better at this? How can we create just a little bit of daylight between what we believe and who we are? Well, the sources here suggest 3 really powerful habits to cultivate. First, just get comfortable saying, "I don't know." Remove the stigma. See it not as a weakness, but as an honest, intelligent starting point. Second, constantly try to calibrate your conviction to the evidence. Ask yourself, how sure am I? And does the evidence I have actually justify that level of sureness? And the third is a beautiful little mindset shift. Try not to be wrong for a moment longer than you have to be. The goal isn't to never be wrong, it's to get right sooner. And in the end, that's really what this is all about.
Being rational isn't some cold, robotic exercise. It's the very thing that protects our ability to cooperate, to solve problems, really to safeguard all the other human values that we cherish. So the question isn't just what you believe, but how you hold your beliefs. And thinking about that just might be the most important thing we can do.